On today's episode, we'll talk about the importance of character, focus pulling as storytelling, MASH, Joker, Interstellar, and of course, flying a jumbo jet through a cloud bank without radar. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and gooey operator goodness. Make sure to check out The Breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, The Musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the answers, the images, and so much more. I may or I may not take a break or two during this episode, but I promise that none of them will be longer than 22 seconds. Are you someone who needs custom-made cables for your camera or Steadicam sled? Well, fear not, because the sponsor for today's episode, Custom Camera Cables, can take care of all of your cabling needs. 30 colors and custom lengths means your new BNC or camera cable will be exactly the way you want it. Don't delay, order yours today at customcameracables.com. And while you're at it, mention us and use the promo code THEOP and you'll get free shipping. If you are enjoying the podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy the op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling. Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark.
And camera set. And action.
Hello and welcome back to the Op Podcast, the podcast where we talk about operating and the art of visual storytelling. I am Dave Comides, your host, and I am coming to you today from lovely Acworth, Georgia, in the home of my guest today, Gregory Irwin, who is a longtime focus puller, an amazing focus puller. He's had an incredible career, just done an amazing amount of stuff. I actually just met Greg recently, and I'm excited to be here. So a couple of Greg's accomplishments, but by no means everything, because the list is very long. 2016 SOC Lifetime Achievement Award winner. He has worked on Jokers 1 and 2, Interstellar, American Hustle, 3 Hangovers, The Fighter, and almost all of the Fast and Furious franchise, which is not easy to say, but an amazing amount of work. He's an incredible focus puller, known throughout the business, and I'm really excited to be here and talk with you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having me, actually. I'm in your place.
No, it's an honor. Thank you for inviting me. I've been looking forward to this.
This is great. Well, we actually... we have a bunch of people in common, but we both know John Lindley very well. And John had actually said, you got to talk to Greg. And okay, there you go. If John says, then.
One of my favorite human beings on the planet.
His name comes up often on this podcast. Yeah. So tell me, what's your story? How'd you get here to Acworth, Georgia?
Well, I'm from Southern California originally. Most of my career was L.A. Mm-hmm. And for about 15 straight years, I was commuting back and forth to Atlanta for the Fast and Furiouses primarily, and other movies.
Yeah.
And finally, I just got tired of the commuting, and L.A. got too crowded for me.
Yeah.
So my wife and I talked about it, and we decided to make the move.
Yeah.
And we're very happy here.
So, but how'd you start out in the business? Did you always want to be in movies, like when you were a kid, or?
Well, it started in high school because my high school had a 4-year film program. It was very unique.
Well, this is in California.
In Southern California, yeah.
Oh, so like 4 years, meaning like you take English and you take history and everything else, and then you take film electives, sort of?
It was film electives, but it was very comprehensive. So every spare moment was dedicated to that. We had a very dedicated teacher. He was an English teacher who was a cinemaphile. And he just loved it.
What was his name? You remember his name?
Jerry Kestenberg.
Wow.
And he and I became very close. And one of my fellow students was Larry Fong, ASC.
Oh my gosh, wow.
So we were in this together.
So we have this gentleman to thank for the both of you, at least, if not many others.
And that really, I didn't know anything about film or cinema going in my freshman year.
So, but this school wasn't devoted to filmmaking. This was just something this guy did and a bunch of people.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
Yeah, it was his creation, his idea.
So cool.
As it turned out, we didn't know this at the time and we were too young to understand it. He spent all of his own money supplying the gear and, the course curriculums. This was all his passion.
What a legacy. Right. For one person, you do something and you figured, I just want to do this.
He was a great man.
Were you shooting video or were you shooting film or what?
8mm.
8 millimeter.
Yeah, this is back in the 70s. So,
Okay.
yeah, we were
Yeah.
mainly 8
Like
millimeter.
old Bell and Howells or something like
We
that? Or
had Bell and
Kodak or-
Howells and, gosh, I don't even remember. For
Yeah.
sure, Bell and Howells.
Yeah.
And whatever else the 8
That's
millimeter
great.
cameras of the day were.
Yeah.
And it was very educational. So 4 years of that led to college, film school. I went to film school and business school. And there's a whole story behind that. And I started professionally when I was 18 years old, still in college.
Now, being in LA, like, I mean, did your family know film people or did you have connections or?
No, none. Funny story about why business school was my dad was a businessman,
Yeah.
very pragmatic businessman. He expected me to follow in his
I was going
footsteps.
to say, going into the film industry was probably not.
And I was very young for my grade. And I was in high school towards the end of my 12th year. I hadn't
Whoa.
even turned 13 yet. I was skipped ahead
Yeah, yeah.
a year. And my late in the year birthday, I was the baby in my class wherever I went. And so this high school film school experience got me passionate about it. I was hooked. I was all in. And so I think I was 16 and already applying for college.
Wow.
Different universities. And I told my dad I wanted to go to film school. Well, he panicked. He didn't really believe it would happen.
Yeah.
He let it ride, didn't say anything.
It'll go away.
It'll go
right?
away. Yeah, tomorrow will be something new.
Exactly.
And it didn't go away. So when it really came time to make these decisions, we had that come to Jesus talk.
Mm-hmm.
He sat me down and he said, Greggy, there's no way you're going to film school. You're going to business school because we don't know anybody in that industry. We have no contacts. I'm afraid for you.
Yep.
So we're going to do the safe thing. And he taught me at a very young age, everything was negotiable. So the negotiation began.
Yeah.
It lasted about 3 days.
Okay.
I finally saw little bits of cracks in the ice, little tiny openings.
You wore him down.
I learned well from him.
Yeah.
And finally, it culminated in the end where he agreed to film school with one condition that was not negotiable. And that was I had to get a business degree. That was the best advice.
I was going to say, I bet you've
ever
thanked him
received.
time and time again.
Oh,
'Cause
for sure. You know, at the time, it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But boy, it sure did after college.
Wow. And so where'd you go to school?
I went to Long Beach State, California State University, Long Beach School of Cinematic Arts. I got one degree there, and I got another degree at USC later on.
So when you went into Long Beach, because you'd had this 4 years, were you sort of like miles ahead of other people with what you
I
already
went
knew?
in, yeah. At that time, we could declare a major right out of the gate, right as a freshman.
Yeah.
So I was declared, and I had my 2 degrees declared. I didn't know how I was going to handle all that, and just blindly marched forward. But I was so far advanced than my classmates. But the first day of college, the College of the Arts had an orientation with the dean of the school of the college.
Yeah.
You have your university, you have your college, and then you have your school.
Yep.
So the School of Cinematic Arts within the College of the Arts, we were in this lecture hall. There was probably 300 people, all new students. The dean walks out there, and it was that classic opening line. I don't remember the exact words, but basically he said, look around you. Most of you won't be here in a month. And we're like, oh, yeah, right, And he was very direct, almost mean. I mean, he was out there to scare us.
Wow.
And he said, for the film majors, don't think you're getting your hands dirty on equipment until your junior year.
Oh.
If you survive that long.
Wow.
And I'm like sitting there. I'm just a little kid by the age group of my peers
Yeah,
around
you're
me.
like a year and a half younger than most of these people.
I'm scared to death at this point. I'm frozen in my seat.
That's awesome.
Well, to make a long story short, he wasn't kidding. The attrition rate was insane. Started out in a class of 300, graduated in a class of less than 50.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
They were tough. They knew they had to compete on the USC, NYU level.
I gotcha.
And
Wow.
they did not fool around. You were either in it, you were going to maintain your grades, you were going to be on time.
Yeah.
They had rules for everything, and it was like boot camp. And it was good because it taught you the responsibility for what the real world
I was just going to use that word because like that's one of the things that I think is missing now, which is there's not, they don't hold you to these things anymore. There's always like,
pure
well, we'll give you another,
accountability.
yeah,
Pure
2 strikes and you're out or whatever it is.
Well, that's what we had. It had a different name. This is over 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But it was basically a 3 strikes, you're out. If you were late to class or you were late with an assignment, you had a 6-minute grace period from the time class started, and then it wasn't accepted.
Yep.
Didn't matter why. First strike was a check mark, basically next to your name. Second strike was a full letter grade drop.
Whoa.
And you had to have a B average to be in the school.
So, yeah.
Third strike, you were shown the door. It didn't matter what the reason was. You were out.
I can't say that I completely disagree with that.
It was great. I mean, it kept us on our toes.
Sure. And did they hold true to you didn't touch gear until junior year?
Not exactly. Not exactly. They didn't have enough gear for the number of students.
Especially
Yet
at the
the
beginning.
rules still applied.
Yeah.
You had to figure it out.
Yeah.
So my college roommate and I, who was also a film major, he was the director, I was the cinematographer. We wrote all of our scripts at night because we used a credit card or an old ID. We knew how to jimmy the equipment room lock. We'd go in there at midnight. We would borrow everything, shoot all night long, have the gear back on the shelf, cleaned and ready to go, like nobody was ever there the next morning until we finally got caught one time. But our assignments were in on time, and that's all that mattered.
Look, at the end of the day, that probably gets you ready for the film industry, where especially at the very beginning, you had to just like beg, borrow, and steal to get things done.
You had to be inventive. You had to figure it out.
That's awesome.
Get creative. And the funny part was when we were finally caught, we got chewed out. We had to stand in front of all the administration, take our lumps. But I know they were smiling on the inside because of the inventiveness.
Well, they were probably looking at you going, these are the two of the people to watch because
That's right.
they're not letting anything stop them.
That's right.
Yeah, there's something to that.
You have to have a take no prisoners attitude in this industry.
Yeah.
Nothing can prevent you. You still have to have character and credibility, but you have to have the tenacity to move forward.
It's not an easy business to be in, especially I don't know whether it's not easier now, but the business, there's so many people in it now. It's definitely harder to make a living and rise up and all that, I think, anyway.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Like
it's
especially at the moment.
especially at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's why, and I'm sure we'll talk about this further in this podcast, but a big thing with me is character and credibility. And when I teach, I've lectured at major university film schools for the past 35, 40 years. I don't speak to the classes about filmmaking.
Yeah.
They have their professors, they have their instructors to do that. I speak about the more intangible, important things like what a freelance career really means. How do you manage that? And we speak about character and credibility.
Yeah.
How to represent yourself how you wish to be perceived.
That's hugely important and actually lacking, I think, or the understanding of it is lacking. I think the importance of it. Yeah, no, there's no question about it. So you went to film school and business school, or you went to school and got 2 degrees at the same time. You came out with 2 degrees, more or less.
2 degrees in business, 1 degree in cinema. The 2 business degrees were a little spread apart. I was already adult, out of college, technically.
I got you. Oh, you mean eventually you got it?
Yeah,
I
got the second business degree.
And so how'd you get start working at 18? Like, how did you find that job?
Well,
and what was it?
There was an internship available for all of Southern California film schools. All of the students. There was one spot. And the college, or the school rather, would submit your name as a student. The administration would submit your name formally for the spot, however that worked. And I'm sure they had hundreds of students being submitted.
Of course.
I got it.
Wow.
And I was instantly placed on the camera crew of a TV show called MASH.
You were on MASH? That was your first job?
That was my first job at 20th Century Fox.
I am so jealous, right?
18 years old.
What season?
Oh gosh, it was.
Well, what year was this?
This was in like 80.
Okay, so this is like
79,
the
80.
second or third to last season.
Yeah,
probably.
it was
Near-
towards the end.
Towards the end.
It was towards the end.
Was Richard Thorpe there by any chance?
Dominic Palmer Jr. was the cinematographer.
Okay.
Bob Casey was the operator, and Travers and Patricia Hill were the ACs.
Husband and wife, or
Brother
and sister?
I
Wow,
believe.
oh, interesting. Richard Thorpe must have been there earlier. He was a cinematographer I worked with on ER, and I remember when I met him, and he told me he worked on MASH, because I grew up on MASH. Wow.
Yeah, we all
18
did.
years old, and you're on the set of MASH.
I was on the set of MASH.
You were like a trainee, or
I was the low man on the totem pole,
Yeah.
man. I was the trainee, the PA,
yeah.
if you needed it, I was there to do it.
But with the camera department, or just
directly the camera.
with the directly the
Yeah.
camera department?
Obviously, I was non-union, so
Yeah.
I couldn't do much, and I
And-
didn't know what to do.
And I don't actually even know, was MASH sort of what we would call a single camera show? It was like
Pretty much, yeah.
It wasn't a sitcom, you
No,
know.
no, no, it was
Yeah,
single
obviously
cam.
it wasn't, but it was single
35
cam.
millimeter film.
Yeah, I was working with someone who worked on that, who said that, especially when they were out in, was it Malibu where the camp was?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Malibu Mountains.
they were basically on a Titan or some sort of crane, like for everything. It just went on at the beginning of the day and came off at the end of the day, and was on
much.
because they could just get around. Wow, that's
And it
so
was-
cool.
And it was
though.
stage 9 at Fox that
Okay.
had the whole compound built
Wow.
in it. So you could shoot all the exteriors on stage, but they did go out to the Fox Ranch.
I
in
got you.
Santa
Wait,
Monica Mountains.
So you mean you're saying they had the camp built inside of Stage 9? Like,
Everything. Basically, the set was, the stage is rectangular
Yeah.
inside big space.
yeah.
The camp was built like a horseshoe, with the OR, the surgery center, was like the trap of the U.
Yeah.
The swamp, the main tent, was in the
In
center
the
of
center,
everything.
of course, yeah.
Then all the other tents were kind of in the U around it, all facing in.
And that was all on one stage. That's
all on
amazing
one
to me
stage. There was
that
only one stage.
that's incredible.
Yeah.
And then those were all practical interiors, I would assume, as well.
Yeah, they had some wild walls, and
Yeah, of
everything
course.
was
Yeah.
pre-lit.
Yeah.
They had it so dialed in. You were home for dinner every night.
That's
on that show.
amazing.
And
wow.
it was the writing. The writing was so good.
The writing was fantastic.
But a funny story was, out of all the cast, I mean, Don Palmer Jr., the DP, really took me under his wing. He saw me as this young man, very young man, who just had his mouth hanging open and his eyes were big as
can't even
saucers.
imagine.
He took me under his wing, and he really took the time to teach me a lot of things.
So great.
And the whole camera team was phenomenal with
Yeah.
me. There was only one person in that company that was not so nice to me, and that was one of the actors who played Charles Winchester III. I guess I was in the way most of the time.
Okay.
At least in his way. I don't know.
David Ogden Stiers, right?
David Ogden Stiers.
Wow.
He was pretty much his character.
Okay. All right.
And there was one day at the craft service table, I was getting something to eat, and Stiers came up and he looked at me and said, "Now, who are you?" And I turned around and I said, "Hi, I'm Greg Irwin," all chipper and saluting. And he just kind of shook his head in disgust and he goes, "What are you doing here?"
Oh,
And just deflated my
oh
whole
my
world.
gosh. Oh.
I didn't know what to do. I mean, everything just dropped.
Yeah.
in me.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And
hilarious.
Harry Morgan, the elder actor
Harry Morgan.
who played Colonel Potter,
Yeah.
came up, put his arm around me, and said to Stiers, "Leave the boy alone, David. He's with me."
I love this. Oh, this is so great.
So Harry Morgan became kind of my grandfather.
That's
on
so
set,
fantastic.
And he looked after me.
I will share a story with you because I'm a complete MASH nerd. I mean, I grew up on it, and I can quote episodes by heart. It's a weird thing. I also, for the record, just so not everybody thinks that I'm not a complete loser, I shattered my hip when I was 11, and I was on crutches for 2 years. In the first 6 months, I literally was sitting on a couch watching reruns of MASH. So I have a reason for it, but still,
Such a great show.
But I know that I read once that at the end of this on the final episode, Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, David Ogden Stiers' character gives something to Loretta Swit's character, and she opens it up and she reads it. You don't know what it is, and she starts to cry. And I read once that she was really crying because what he had put in there was his personal home phone number, which he had never given out to everybody. And they used to kid him about, because apparently he was a very reserved guy who didn't like to interact. Like he wouldn't go out with the crew and the cast and whatever.
Makes sense.
And that's who sort of he was. So I only mentioned that because it might not have been you. It might have just been, that's who he is. But I remember reading that and going, oh, that's really lovely. And she opened it up and it said something like, call me anytime or something like that. And she was really sort of touched that he'd let her inside. So
That's very nice. And you know what? He's not a bad human being. He's a good man. I was probably overly enthusiastic at times. I was so excited to be there. I'm sure I was very youthful.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Please tell me that Alan Alda was as great a person as
he was. He was. Everybody was.
So great.
Everybody was. And
how long were you there?
I was there for about a season.
Okay.
Maybe a little more than that.
Wow.
But I was doing that in between. I was still in school.
Oh, you're still in school?
I was still in school.
So you go to classes every day and then going there? Or how does that work?
We made a plan for me and it was managed.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
it could work.
But 5 days a week you're going?
I was there maybe 4 days. There were a couple days here and there I couldn't be there.
Yeah.
And it was accepted, you know. It wasn't like I was on payroll. But the end of college is when it really got challenging because I had to do a thesis for my business major, and I had to do a final project thesis or whatever for film school. And they were both due at the same time, in order, I had to do them to graduate.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, I can't shoot a 30-minute 16 millimeter film, edit it, turn it in for my final project, and do a thesis for business school. There's just no way. There's not enough time. So I thought about it. I thought about what would my dad tell me? So I decided to do a thesis for both schools, not a film project. And I did one thesis, tax shelters and tax incentives in the state of California for the motion picture industry. I made 2 copies of it and turned it into each school.
That's it's proof that you're going to do well in this business right there.
I figured this is the only way I was going to survive.
That's great. And you passed, obviously?
I graduated.
That's great. That's great. Oh, that's fantastic. I want to go back to MASH for a second. I'm not going to ask you a MASH question, but so you show up, you have no idea really, I'm assuming, of how a film set works and the hierarchy. I mean, you're thrown into the pool, right?
First exposure ever.
So I asked this for people who might be, their first time on set, they listen to this and they're going to be first time on set. How do you go in there and not be completely overwhelmed, not be in the way, not ask too many questions, but also, you have any advice for someone on that?
Well, most of it is common sense.
Yeah.
You have to be on your best behavior, but you can't squander the opportunities as well.
That's my point
So, you have to be respectful, most purely respectful to everybody.
Yep.
You don't know the etiquette, the on-set etiquette. You're going to learn quickly where to stand, where not to stand. You're going to feel like you're always in the way.
Yeah.
Heck, 45 years later, I feel like I'm in the way half the time.
Sometimes I feel that way too.
But we know where to be and when to be there pretty much these days, and you learn that quickly.
Yeah.
And you know what? They're going to let you know. And our industry, I think, is very charitable overall. Yeah, we have our individuals that may not be, but overall, people are going to say, hey, come on over here, get out of the actor's eye line, stand right here.
They're going to help you.
They're going to help.
Because I think probably because we've all been there, right?
Exactly.
And it's weird because when you say that, it makes me think of, there's some people who maybe are not so charitable. And my feeling was always like, their thinking is, well, I had to go through it, so they're going to have to go through it too, and I'm going to watch. And then there are other people who went through it and going, I don't want this person to have to go through what I went through, so I'm going to help them. And I think
that would be me.
Yeah.
Because when I got started really professionally, I was, the whole attitude on set was to beat down the person below you.
There was a weird thing back in the day, right?
That's how it was.
I think more, maybe I'm wrong, but I think more so in the camera department than some other departments. Or maybe I just didn't see it as much. But
well, I'm with you on that. I'm not quite sure, but I know it was
bad.
Pounded into the ground.
Yeah, there was like
daily.
I took my lumps, you're going to take your lumps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the outcome of that for me was, after I survived all that, because there were many days, Dave, I wasn't sure if I was cut out for this.
Oh.
You're going home in tears
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and questioning your existence.
Yep.
But I persevered. I told myself, stand up, get tough. You're going to do this. There was no, there was no other option. Failure wasn't an option for me.
Yeah.
So I'd go back the next day. Yeah, I'd get browbeat again. And, it was just, that was the culture. So after I got through all that and I became more established and had a name for myself, I made a decision. I am not going to behave that way to anybody else. I did not like it. I'm not going to treat others that way.
It stops
We're
here.
It stops here.
Yeah, that's great.
We're going to have a teaching environment if we need that. And then if you're just not cut out to be on my camera team, well, then you're not going to be invited back.
Yeah.
We're not going to make a show of it. We're not going to send messages out there overtly, and it's not the way to go. And these days we can't do it anyway.
No, well, yeah. But it is weird because when I think back on it, it used to be like that where it was like you got beat up because that was sort of, it was almost like hazing in a way, right? In a weird way. And then that sort of stopped on its own. And now, like you said, there's enforcement of like, well, it couldn't happen because, whatever.
We never had HR in those days.
No, God, no.
And
there's a lot of people who wouldn't have been working if that was the case. Yeah. So when you left MASH, did you feel like you could be part of like you knew enough to be part of a camera department?
I think I thought I knew more than I really did.
I think I still do.
I still didn't have the experience.
Yeah.
I had a lot of knowledge. I mean, when you're that age and that new, you're a sponge. Everything you're just absorbing.
Yeah.
To put it all in practice on your own is a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I started small after that when I was out of school, struggling to break into the business, even with MASH behind me.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the union yet. That took a few years to get in.
Was it still hard to get into the union at that point?
It was closed.
It was still closed
a
at that point.
Shop.
Okay.
So it was virtually impossible, even with the contacts I made.
Yeah.
So I started in the non-union, low-budget world. I think there's a movie out there that still owes me a lot of money from back then. I'm expecting a check anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure it's coming. It's just accruing interest as we speak. Yeah, I often actually wonder, I wonder if there's money sitting somewhere, not much, but
you can bet on it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, did that. And then when I got into the guild and started doing real better jobs, I did Airwolf, A-Team, Murder, She Wrote, television. And, I was the B guy, B camera first. I was the A camera first on second unit.
Uh-huh.
Eventually, very early on, I became the A camera first.
Yeah.
Probably before I should have.
Okay.
Because I didn't know any better. I didn't know I shouldn't be.
It's not always a bad thing. I mean, if it works out in the long run, it's not a bad thing.
Well,
but
I hope it worked out. We'll judge it
I think
when
you
my
did
day
okay.
comes. But I was still in my early mid-20s. I was the A camera first on some big TV shows.
And Airwolf, A-Team, Murder, She Wrote, are those single camera shows or is there a B camera on those shows?
We had B cameras. Sometimes we had multiple cameras for the stunt stuff.
But most days was two cameras?
One or two.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, today having two cameras seems to be the rule. If
I
not
think
three.
Everything does, yeah.
But back then it wasn't the case.
Yeah, that's what that's why I asked.
You brought in your B team.
Yeah.
On days you needed them.
Yep.
It was very cost conscious, especially television. But I'll tell you, Dave, that TV experience was my training ground.
Yeah.
You had to work fast. You had to work efficiently. We made a lot of mistakes going along. Of course, we're human. But I learned from those mistakes. I would correct one mistake and then go out and make another one. But you learned. That's how I learned.
Yeah.
And then about 4 or 5 years into my career, I switched to theatrical release, feature films.
By choice or you just...
By choice. That's where I wanted to be.
Okay.
I wanted to be doing the big movies.
And back then, they were still two separate worlds. There wasn't
two separate worlds.
And TV was sort of still looked down on back then, yeah, as sort of.
I don't know if it was looked down upon. It was just a different part of our business.
Yeah, because you weren't a DP who did a TV show and then went and did a feature. It's not like nowadays.
It was pretty. You were pigeonholed. You were
either
in commercials, television, features,
Yeah.
You're one or the other.
So would you just meet people and start asking around, or
I started networking at Panavision, going up to my heroes, focus pullers that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Kenny Nishino, Cal Roberts,
Oh my God.
Johnny Walker, Tony Rivetti.
For people who don't know, Tony Rivetti's been on the show, but some of those other guys I want to have. But these are like,
the legend. They were the legends.
Legends, exactly.
And I would just walk up and introduce myself.
Wow.
And, they were very nice to me.
Yeah.
Eventually, I don't remember what movie it was. I got a fairly sizable film. I mean, this was a few years into my feature career, and I was just on an upward trajectory.
Meaning you started out on low budget, smaller stuff.
And
then,
now I'm doing bigger studio stuff. I remember it was in the 90s, mid 90s, we did the remake of The Parent Trap with 10-year-old Lindsay Lohan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was the A-camera main unit first, and we were adding cameras because of all the kids we had in the movie and time limits.
Sure, yeah.
So I went out and I hired all of my heroes.
How cool.
I had them working with me on my team, and I was the A-camera guy.
Yeah.
And man, you talk about a responsibility.
Yeah, and then when you do something like that, do you feel, they may not be, but do you feel like every single one of them is watching you and judging you at all times?
100%. So, I bring my A game no matter what.
Yeah.
But I was on my A+ game.
I mean, yeah, and wondering probably if that's even enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I listened. They counseled me. They gave me pointers.
That's
hey,
great.
Maybe it'd be better if you thought about doing, tomorrow's call sheet this way.
Yeah.
With all the pre-calls.
Oh, how cool.
And I'd ask, why are you saying that?
Yeah.
Because of blah, 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 A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. That's great.
So, you never stop learning.
No.
Two things in our industry, two things in human life. You never stop learning, and you never stop making mistakes.
And that's how you learn, actually, 9 times out of 10.
The one feeds the other.
Yeah. My dad always used to tell me, you're always going to make mistakes. The key is you don't want to make them twice. And I always thought, that's pretty much it, because you're never going to get to the point where you don't make mistakes. It just doesn't happen. And in a weird way, I think it's not a good thing, because generally, at least as a camera operator, I feel, if I'm not making mistakes, it means I'm not pushing myself anymore. And if I'm not pushing myself, then I'm not learning.
That's right.
So it's all cyclical. Right?
Yeah, and I think also as you mature professionally, you learn how to handle the mistakes, how to own them.
Absolutely.
Not try to bury them, hide them, because they're going to come out soon enough anyway.
Yeah.
It's better to just face it head on, and that'll put it to bed faster.
Yeah.
And you can move on.
And at least puts yourself out of your misery faster, if nothing else. Because now, do you remember anything early on as a focus puller where you completely screwed up and you thought, I'm never gonna survive this?
Oh my God, let me get the binder out. Oh, they're not only blown focus. I remember one time on a big shot, a lot of times the camera operator rolled the camera. I worked with a couple operators where I would just reach back and roll the camera myself.
By the way, just to interrupt, so for anybody who's listening now and doesn't understand that, that's because Greg used to sit by the camera like a camera assistant did and was touching the lens.
That's right. No remote focus,
and it was
no Prestons.
It was great. And actually, my thing was I would always roll, but I would always forget to cut. So the assistant would usually lean back and know that they were supposed to cut.
Well, there was one particular day early on where I had for my level of expertise, almost an impossible shot to pull focus on.
Yeah.
I was nervous. I was so dialed in and concentrating. They called, you rolled camera, action. We did the take, cut. I reached back to cut the camera. Oh. Guess what? I never rolled it.
Oh my! Because you were so concentrating.
I was so concentrating on the focus, I forgot to roll the camera.
That's the worst thing in the world. Oh, that's terrible.
So everything flashes in your mind. You instantly start sweating.
Yeah.
It's 40 degrees outside and you're hot. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Well, that's easy. You face it.
It's gonna happen no matter what.
They're gonna know.
Yeah.
And the operator didn't catch it, oddly enough. For whatever reason.
Which is weird, because as an operator back then, you would see the shutter moving and you'd feel it and whatever.
I think we were so preoccupied with the
Getting
fact
the
of
shot.
the shot
Yeah.
that we just vapor
I'm not going to
locked.
not say that didn't ever happen to me.
So I had to go to the first AD and to the DP, and hardest thing in the world was to admit my mistake.
Can't imagine.
I felt awful.
Oh,
And the DP just looked at me and goes, "Oh, really? Oh, well, let's do it again." And I thought that was going to make myself feel better, but I didn't forgive myself forever on that.
no. So then, if you can remember that, then do you just take all that emotion and sort of like shove it into a box and close the lid so that you can get back to doing your job and then deal with it later? Or
You know what? Major League Baseball players that make 20 million a season strike out,
yeah,
or miss the catch.
everybody screws up.
Everybody screws up.
Yep.
You have to let it go.
Yeah.
You have to move on. File it file it in your memory bank. I'm going to say that again. You have to let it go. File that in the memory bank under, okay, I did that. I'm not going to do it again. Let's keep marching forward.
Yeah.
And you recover and move on. Because if you let that hang on to you and you're just bogged down, you're going to lose concentration. You're going to lose confidence. You're going to really start making mistakes. And that could become costly to you.
Yeah, it's a total mental game at that point. I mean,
It's completely mental management.
yeah, it's absolutely right. And I don't know that there's any shorthand for it, but you got to figure something out because, like you said, if you let it get to you, you're done. You're going to mess up every shot from then on.
That's right. You don't want to take it lightly and let it go lightly,
Yeah.
but you have to forgive yourself.
Yeah, and
so
you
can
can't
move
dwell
forward.
on it. That's the other thing.
can't
You
dwell
can't.
on
That
it.
was done, and I can't do that again. And there's no question about it.
I mean, we've had some epic failures on some movies I've done, not directly related to me necessarily, but as a department head, as the A-camera first, I have to deal with it. And, that's where maturity and experience comes in. With me, if I have an incredible camera department, incredible. They're all rock stars.
Yeah,
And they've been with me many, many years.
that's great. That's the best.
The trust and the bond is immense among this team.
Yeah,
And for me, it's easy. I don't have to micromanage these guys. I don't have to tell them what to do. My job is to listen to what they need and make their experience the best possible for them to perform at the highest level. That's my job. In between, I pull focus.
That's fantastic. That's so great. I love how you put that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you surround. That's what smart people do, by the way. They surround themselves with
best.
good people and allow them to do their work. Right.
So, there have been times where we've traveled internationally on big movies where we've taken local hires. And a lot of times they're not quite as experienced as we are just because of the nature of the market in whatever country we're in. And we've had some pretty devastating mistakes
Yeah.
occasionally. But again, it's how you manage it. It's how you fix it. You react quickly and just get it behind you,
Yeah.
no matter what,
And move on.
and move on.
Do you remember how long it took to the point where someone called you for a job and you could just walk on the set and not worry that you could do the job?
I think in my 46th year, maybe that'll happen.
All right, you're gonna call me. We're gonna do another podcast. You're gonna call. Hey, we got to talk right now. It just happened.
It just happened.
Okay, so I'm not alone in this. That I'm wondering, like, I'm starting a job in a month and going, I hope I could do it.
I used to be that way. I really don't worry about that anymore. I used to be sleepless the night before the first day. I'm past that because honestly, there's not much I haven't done in this business. Although, having said that, every job is a new experience.
Yeah.
And there might be curveballs and new things you have to learn, new ways to do things.
Yeah.
And again, part of experience and maturity is your mind is open to do that.
Sure.
You don't have to accept everything out there. Maybe some of them aren't good ideas
Yeah.
or good experiences, but you have the power to choose what's good for you, what's good for your team, what's good for the movie,
Yeah.
and make those decisions, especially as an A-camera first. Because my job is not only the filmmaking, pulling focus, camera, and all that. I'm dealing with the studio. I'm dealing with the producers. I'm dealing with the filmmakers.
Yeah.
By that I mean director, DP.
Yeah.
So I have to wear multiple hats. Any camera first has to wear
Yeah.
multiple hats. And we're doing all this throughout any course of a business day, and you're pulling focus and getting shots done. And in between, you're these days texting production, getting approvals for tomorrow, next week, managing any issues that are affecting the department.
Yeah.
And, that can be overwhelming to a lot of people. Again, I'm experienced enough to where I can take that load, strip it down to its most simple form, and just get it done and out of the way.
Yeah.
I don't like things lingering because I probably will forget about them. I want to get them done now and check that box and move on. And again, I want to have a very strong team around me, especially the key second AC.
Okay.
That has to be a very strong, intuitive, respectful individual who understands the big picture, not just that person's job.
And when you say the big picture, what do you mean?
What's best for the production, what's best for the team, not just what's best for your job,
Yeah.
your job duties.
Yep.
Your job duties become muscle memory. When you're young and starting out, and even when you're intermediate in your career, you're still really concentrating on your actual job duties. It's not necessarily all second nature yet. There comes a day, to your previous question, it does become muscle memory.
Yeah.
And that very myopic view you have of just your job description itself and pulling focus, building cameras, slating, camera reports, whatever, panning, tilting, your view, your peripheral view becomes much broader and you're seeing the world much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And that muscle memory is now tucked away.
Yeah.
You're not worrying about that part.
Yeah.
I don't think about pulling focus anymore.
So you can open yourself up to all that other stuff because your brain has the ability to...
I'm watching everything else while I'm pulling focus.
You told me something interesting, and I don't remember what we were talking about specifically, maybe you do, but about a very hard shot that you were doing where you're not even looking at the numbers anymore. You're just sort of in the moment and focusing. And it wasn't as much as like watching the monitor per se, which of course you are, but at this point. But do you remember what we were talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't worry about the distances anymore. I don't worry about, the only number I worry about is minimum focus. If we get inside minimum and I can't do anything about it,
Yeah.
Then that's a concern.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't worry about focal length. I don't worry about T-stop. I don't worry about distance. A shot is a shot. It's just you're going to do your job the best to your ability. All that distraction, oh my God, my depth of field is so shallow. How am I going to do this? You're going to tense up. Your body tenses up. Your hand on the focus knob certainly tenses up to immobility almost. Your brain freezes and you get uptight. You can't perform.
Do you think that was that a conscious decision, or is that just something that sort of
Just
happened
evolved.
over time?
Just
It evolved,
evolved.
and it has to. I mean, it's hearing you say it's not about the numbers, and it's not, but obviously on some level it is, because you have to be, focus has to be where it is to keep something sharp. But is it just because you've internalized it so much and you understand it without thinking about it?
Well, again, it's that muscle memory and broadening your vision,
Yeah.
because focus pulling to me is not technical. It's creative. It's storytelling.
I love that.
I'm telling the story via focus, along with the camera operator, along with the director of photography, along with the director, the actors,
Yeah.
the screenwriter. It's all about story.
So when you're pulling, I'm assuming you pull focus off of a monitor
These
now?
days,
Yeah.
yes.
So when you're watching the monitor, are you basically watching the story? Is that
I'm
what's
watching the story.
That's what's informing you.
I've read the scene.
And watching the
I've read the
performance.
script. And
Yeah.
every day I read the sides,
Yep.
the scene we're shooting. I understand the rhythm, the tone. I understand what the scene is about, what's important.
Yeah.
And I even visualize how it's going to be cut. And if I don't understand exactly the editing,
Yeah.
how it's going to affect the decisions I need to make with focus, I'll ask.
That's awesome.
I'll ask.
So to that I thought, if I were to pull you off the street and throw you in a scene that you had no idea what the story was, you had no idea what the screenplay was, you'd never seen these actors before, it would be harder for you to pull focus on that than something where you understood it? Right off the bat, anyway. I mean,
Well, I think I could still get it in focus.
yeah,
But is it all the exact right decision making?
that's what I'm asking. Is
To an extent, it would be good.
Yeah.
Would it be the best? Maybe not.
yeah,
Focus pulling is like music. You're playing music. There's rhythm, there's sequence, there's timing. For example, if it's a very romantic, slow, intimate scene, are you going to be doing fast racking back and forth?
Yep.
Or are you going to blend your racks, visualizing how the scene is,
Sure.
timing it out so you're a part of the scene? You're not the scene.
oh, I love that. So
And
great.
Conversely, I've done 7 Michael Bay movies, all action, all chaos. Yeah, now you're slamming focus all over the place because the cutting is going to be rapid.
You've only got half a second to make that piece or whatever.
You have a half a second to make the piece. You want the energy.
Yeah.
You want that energy. Sometimes in my ear, I'll play music,
Really?
appropriate music to the scene.
Oh,
Because
interesting.
that helps me feel the tempo of the scene.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's
I've
amazing.
done that several times.
I love that. That's
And
great.
so if it's a Michael Bay movie, it's some driving epic action music. If it's a slow movie, it'll be the appropriate
yeah.
something off
Oh,
of
that's-
Spotify or whatever.
That's
I
really
just play it very low in my ear.
That's really cool. The version of what you're saying, I think, that I've often said before is the assistants that I like to work with, the focus pullers that I like to work with, are the people who know how to go from A to B, but understand more so why they're going from A to B.
That's right.
It's like, and that's where the storytelling is, because
It's equally important to know when not to pull focus
exactly, right?
and when to pull focus.
Yeah, yeah. But that comes back to storytelling as well, right?
Storytelling.
Yeah.
It's all about story, Dave.
Yeah.
100% about story. It doesn't matter what you're doing, panning and tilting as an operator. It doesn't matter what I'm doing on the focus knob. If it's not appropriate for the storytelling, it's not usable.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this?
Yeah. Do you have a preference overall of the types of movie you're working on? Something like Michael Bay, Fast and Furious, whatever, even The Hangover, which is a comedy, versus something that's a hardcore drama. I can't think of something. Or, is there a preference, or are they all sort of their own thing?
They're all their own thing, but I like the variety.
Yeah.
You don't want to do a steady diet of just action movies.
No,
You don't want to do a steady diet of 12-page dialogue scenes
Yeah. So
between two people.
yeah, My Dinner with Andre for
Yeah.
12 years would get a little boring.
But there are times you want to do Dinner with Andre, and there are times you want to do The Rock or Pearl Harbor
Yeah.
or, whatever.
You have a favorite movie that you've done?
I have different ones for different reasons.
Is there something that you sort of are? Is there a movie? And I'm not going to ask you. I'll ask you for one, but I'm not saying this is the only one. That's just like, I'm really proud to have been a part of this film.
Interstellar.
Interstellar.
That was the hardest movie I've ever done.
Why?
It was film.
Yeah.
It was 65 millimeter
Which is-
film, IMAX, quite a bit of it.
Jeez.
We shot it wide open, no rehearsals. Chris Nolan holds you very accountable.
Wow.
And it was just uber challenging. I was on my own it was one camera,
Okay.
basically at a
Yeah,
time.
he generally does that,
Yeah,
right?
it was one camera, so I was doing every shot. Barely got to the bathroom during the day because Chris works so quickly.
Yeah.
You either buy into his way of working or you struggle.
So I've heard all sorts of stories about him. I mean, but it sounds like it's extremely hard, but is it enjoyable? I don't know if that's the right word. I mean, is it rewarding, I
knew
guess is the right word?
It was rewarding.
Yeah.
It was difficult. It pushed me to my limits a couple times and what I thought my ability.
I mean, I guess at the end of the day, at least the proof's in the pudding. It's like we actually created something good as opposed to it being really hard and coming out and it just being, a nothing movie or
Which
whatever.
happens.
Yeah, yeah, which does
happens all
happen
the time.
Yeah,
No, I knew it was going to be good. I love Hoyte, Van Hoytema, the DP.
yeah,
We had done The Fighter together and we did Interstellar. He does not watch focus. He operates, but he does not watch focus at all. So I always equated it to
And it's filmed, so it's not like,
filmed.
yeah.
I always equated it to flying a jumbo jet through a cloud bank without radar.
And it's 65 millimeter, and it's wide open,
Yeah,
and you
the
have no
T2,
rehearsals.
you
Oh
know.
my gosh.
So yeah, there are little buzzes in the movie. I mean, they're unavoidable.
Yeah.
They're purely unavoidable.
But that's also, to your credit, why someone like you was being asked to do that movie, right? You have a chance at making that work, whereas a lot of people wouldn't be able to.
right.
Just forget about the technical aspect, but also just like you were saying, the mental game. Like you're going to go in there and put it in a box and
Yeah.
and get it done.
And Nolan expects the highest level of work out of everybody. He knows everybody's name. He
love that.
knows your job. He knows a lot of people's job better than they know it.
So he appreciates you. I mean,
appreciates
it. And it sounds like he probably understands how hard what he's asking for is, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
That's good.
I had never done IMAX before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That was my first time, so there was a learning curve.
I thankfully have never, and I'd be fine with that being the rest of my career. I'm okay with that.
Well, it's very funny. He is very focus conscious. He's very camera conscious.
Oh, really?
It's all about that for him.
Huh.
The actors, the storytelling, of course,
of course.
all of it. But he understands how difficult focus pulling is on his movies. He gets it.
Mm-hmm.
And when we first met, he pulled me aside and he asked me, "How do you pull focus?" I wasn't exactly sure how to answer that. And
You've never met him before this? This is like
this was our first time meeting. So I knew I had the job, but I felt like I was being interviewed.
Absolutely.
He didn't know what he had in me, and that's fair. I think that's fair to say. He didn't know me,
Yeah.
and he's doing a big movie, and focus is like operating. It's very important.
Well, and it sounds like he recognizes how he shoots. He's putting you in a tough position, so he wants to make sure he's not going down a road that's
Absolutely
not going to work. So.
No, he gets it.
So
he
that's fair.
knows how hard it is.
Yes.
So, I told him basically how I worked, in 5 words or less. And he asked me a couple questions. Then he just nodded and said, "Okay, let's see how it goes."
Wow.
See how it
No,
goes.
no pressure.
See how it goes? Does he know something I don't?
Oh, God.
Anyway, I work off of Preston 100% of the time. This is before digital.
Okay.
The reason is I wear glasses. They're progressive lenses, multifocal.
Mm-hmm.
I have to look out the bottom of my lenses for close vision.
Okay.
I look out the top of my lenses. And if I'm on a camera, hand on the follow focus, like we used to do it traditionally,
Yep.
by the time I see what's happening in front of me, I look at the lens trying to find where in my glasses
Oh, gee. Oh,
I could see
wow.
I
Sure.
could see the numbers
Yeah,
in focus. I've lost a third of a second,
And
whatever.
You're probably behind
I'm
it at that point. Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
instantly behind.
Yeah.
So I learned how to use the Preston. I hold it.
You can put it wherever it needs
I
to
could
be.
put it where it needs, and I just look up and down with my eyes without moving my head.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. I never thought of that.
Well, Nolan didn't like that. He wanted me to be on a traditional follow focus on the camera because not if I get in trouble, it was when I get in trouble, the operator could grab the knob and save the shot.
Now, but I thought you said Hoyt doesn't look at.
I don't think Chris realized that.
Okay,
at
that's
this
what I was
point.
asking. All right,
But I knew that going
But
in.
conceptually, he has a little bit of a point, I guess.
Yeah,
sure.
if there's no motors on the lens, you can grab the lens and save the take, or
Yep.
at least get it back in sync or whatever. And with a Preston, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So Chris would come up to me. First time he was very polite about it. And he said, "Gregory, do you think you could do it on a regular follow focus? Because if we need to grab the knob, we can." I said, yes, Chris, I can, but I'm a little handicapped doing that way. I didn't want to go into all the reasons
Yeah,
why.
but-
I said, my preference is to do it this way because I'm faster at it.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, do me a favor, try it." So begrudgingly, I
I'm
had to
assuming
do
this
it.
is day one.
This is day 1 or day 2.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly. It was early on. So I took the Preston off. Well, I didn't take it all the way off. I flipped the motors
Flipped the
up
motor,
and I
yeah.
put a follow focus on. I did 1 or 2 takes that way.
Yep.
I hated it. I was so uncomfortable.
I
And
can't
again, I
imagine.
felt like I was behind.
Yeah.
Whether I was or not, didn't matter. I've felt it.
But even it's worth pointing out that just getting into that headspace, eventually you would be, whether you were or not. It's going to negatively affect you to feel like you can't do your job, even if you're doing it. It's just, that's...
And so I did a couple takes that way, and then when everybody was busy and not looking, I went back to the Preston. So we'd do a shot or two. Then Nolan finally realizes it, and he goes, "Gregory, I thought you were going to be on a follow focus." I was, Chris, but I'm asking you if I could just do it this way. It's better.
Yeah.
It's better for a lot of reasons. Be on a follow focus. So I'd go back to the follow focus for 1 or 2 takes. As soon as he was distracted, back to the Preston. We did this dance for the first 3 weeks of the movie.
Oh my gosh.
And it became almost a running joke.
Yeah.
And I would finally eventually say, "All right, Chris, for you, I'll do a take." Because that's all he was getting at this point.
Yeah.
Well, finally, one day, after 3 weeks, Hoyda comes up to me and he said, "So, have you noticed anything different?" I said, "I'm not sure what you're referring to, Hoyda." He goes, "Chris, he hasn't said anything to you about the Preston or about focus."
He gave up.
Well, he was watching dailies.
He was happy.
He was happy.
Okay. You convinced him. Yeah.
I eventually convinced him.
That's great.
And there were shots where I felt like I was doing close-ups of Matthew McConaughey on a +3 diopter on the IMAX camera.
Oh my! With like you said, someone who is not going to probably tell you if it's in or out.
But there were times I would go up to Hoyta and say, "Look, this is insane.
Yeah.
The odds have it I will never get this. So I'm going to take the Preston off, and I want you watching focus, please. Yeah. And grab the knob
if you need to. Yeah.
You're the only one watching, Hoyta.
Yeah.
I need you on this."
Yeah.
And he would do it.
Yeah.
Then he would do it.
Well, so basically what you're saying is not that he can't. It's just not in his nature. He's thinking about lighting. He's thinking about composition,
That's exactly right.
which is fair. That's fine.
It's totally fair.
Yeah.
And, my job is to allow him to do that.
Absolutely.
But if we got into the very few situations where I knew I needed help, I asked for it.
That's great. You can't ask for more than that.
Yeah, and he would totally be into it at that point.
That's fantastic.
And then I'd go back to the Preston and I'd thank him, slap him on the back, say, "I think we're coming back, buddy."
Yeah, that's great. Wow, what an experience. That's amazing. Yeah. So asking about specific movies, The Jokers had to be amazing movies to work on.
Those are some of my favorite movies I've ever done.
I mean, they're 2 completely different films in many different ways. Were they completely different as far as how they were made, or because I heard the second one was very much just figure it out as you go, and I'm wondering, was the first one that way as well?
Well, Larry Sher, the cinematographer, Lawrence Sher, ASC, I've been with him 2 decades, at least, maybe more. He always insists on a moving camera.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the scene is, the camera will be moving in some fashion.
Okay.
If it's a very slow, quiet scene, we're drifting, almost imperceptibly slow.
Yeah.
But the camera's moving. He shoots everything absolutely wide open. We're on the Alexis 65, and his lens requirements are small in size, lightweight, and fast and close focus.
Okay.
So when we did Joker in 2018, Alexis 65, there weren't a lot of large format lenses that would cover open gate.
Yeah.
We had to create them. So my prep was going through 400 existing lenses at Airy Rental in New York.
Oh my gosh.
To get a set of 21.
Oh, for God's sakes.
And it was basically weeks of a process of elimination.
Just doing lens tests and watching them back and whatever,
Well, I have a very strong background in optics, so it was a challenge, and it was a challenge I embraced. So, we had Rubbermaid carts of lenses, all with Post-it notes. I had Excel spreadsheets made out with every lens and serial number and their statistics.
Wow.
And then, for the lenses that absolutely vignetted to a point we couldn't do anything about, they could have been the best lens in the world, but that lens had to be let go.
Yeah.
We couldn't use it. So then we'd find, to make a very long story short, we whittled it down to the possibilities. We found which lenses we can manipulate by swapping elements, opening up iris blades, doing, changing all sorts of internal aspects of the lens while maintaining its optical integrity. And then if it would clear the format, I didn't care if it vignetted an open gate, as long as it was out of the format.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were good.
Yeah, yeah,
And a lot of times these lenses wouldn't be out of the format at a T8,
yeah.
but they were at a 1.48
what you're actually going to use it at.
And that's where we were using.
yeah.
2.8, that was my limit.
Okay.
If we were clear at a 2.8, we were gold.
Gotcha.
Then we would start recoding and matching all the lenses.
Wow.
So in the end, I had this Frankenstein lens set of Leicas, Canon, Zeiss, DNAs. I had a lot of different ones. I'm not even thinking of all of them.
Sure. Yeah.
All different makes and models, but they fit the requirements that Larry required.
Wow.
And they matched at least close enough to get us through the DI.
Yeah.
And the movie was beautiful.
Wow. Now, Jeff Haley was the A camera operator on the first one?
He was the A operator on the first one.
He told me about a really cool story about doing that. It's a scene where Joaquin comes in. It's like a bathroom in a subway station.
Yes.
And that Jeff didn't know what was going to happen.
None of us did.
Nobody did. So just tell me, because for anybody listening who doesn't know, I don't remember when it is, but he has a gun that he gets rid of or something like that, I think in the garbage or something. But he comes in and he's leaning against the door, and Jeff said he starts to tap his foot, and Jeff was sort of like, oh, I guess that must be something, and just
It's an iconic moment in the movie.
It's an amazing scene.
The previous scene, he's on the subway where he kills the 3 Wall Street guys.
That's right. Yes.
Arthur Fleck, the character.
Yeah.
He wasn't a killer. He was mentally ill. He had lack of confidence. He had no social skills. He had a lot of issues going on, but he wasn't a murderer. He lost his job. He had a very bad day. Yes, he had a gun that somebody gave him for protection that got him into a little trouble, the reason why he lost his job. Now, he's on that subway going home after this worst day of his life, and these 3 Wall Street bullies who are drunk start picking on him and then start beating him up on the train. He pulls out the gun and defends himself.
Yeah.
Exactly why he had the gun.
Yep.
Well, he can't believe what happened. He's in shock. Joaquin Phoenix did an amazing performance. And he gets out, gets off the train, and he starts running because he doesn't know what to do. He literally is at a loss, does not know who he is, does not know where he is. He doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Bottom line. So he runs into this public park men's room, bathroom, middle of the night. And that's the scene that you're referring to.
Yeah.
Where he starts transforming
Into the Joker.
into Joker.
Yeah. Or Joker. Yeah.
His whole mental state breaks and he becomes this different persona. So Todd Phillips, the director, he wanted to just go in. He had just gotten the first tracks of the soundtrack
Okay.
from the composer.
Oh.
Nobody had heard him. So he told us, we shot the exterior in New York, Lower Manhattan. We shot the interior on stage. So, many weeks apart.
Yeah.
So when we're doing the interior stage, that's the real scene that we're talking
absolutely.
about.
Yeah.
Todd and Joaquin went into the bathroom. We were all told to take a coffee break for about 2 or 3 hours. They were in there with the music on a speaker,
Just finding it.
just trying to see what Joaquin wanted to do,
Yeah.
just trying to discover what the scene was. Well, then Todd came out and said, we're not rehearsing anything. We're going to go in quietly. Joaquin's in his headspace.
Yep.
We're just going to roll.
You're going to document, basically.
We're going to see what happens.
Yeah.
We were handheld with the Alexa 65. Jeff had it on his
I think the slingshot or whatever, the bungee cord, I don't know, slingshot, but the...
slingshot.
That's a slingshot?
I
Yeah.
think it was
yeah.
a slingshot.
Anyway.
And we go in. I was outside on my monitor,
Yeah.
and the music started playing.
Oh, so they're playing the music in the background.
can hear it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you just said that.
We
yeah.
could hear it. So now we're all getting into the spirit of the scene. We're watching Joaquin in real time changing into Joker.
So cool.
And he just started this macabre dance.
Yeah.
And Jeff just started counter moving.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were going to do until we did it.
Yep.
But Jeff and I We have a long history together. And a lot of the movies we do, especially the David O. Russell movies we've done, we improvise constantly. So we're very comfortable doing this.
It's great.
For a focus puller, it's challenging because you're wide open. You're just watching it in real time.
Yeah.
But if you do it my way, as we were prescribing earlier in the podcast, it's all about story.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about numbers. I'm not worried about focal length, depth of field. I'm watching the story. I'm hearing the music.
Yeah.
Jeff starts counter moving. I'm just following the story as it's unfolding in front of me. We go down to his feet. We come back up to his face. At one point, and all the viewers, all the listeners of this podcast who have seen the movie will know what I'm talking about. I think in the movie we used a second take, but in the first take, suddenly Joaquin brings his hand up, almost in a ballet.
I was just going to say, it's like a ballet move.
Yeah, it's almost a ballet move where he brings it up and extends it up and over his head.
So great.
Well, we were on his face in a close-up or medium shot, close-up, and his hand comes right into the foreground. Right then and there, I made the decision to go to his fingers.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know if he was going to do
It's
a
so
gesture.
cool.
So I just slowly rolled focus. I rolled it slow for two reasons. It was the tempo and rhythm of the scene.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to miss either. I didn't want to go too fast where I overshot.
Sure. And if he happens to move suddenly, you don't know what
I
he's
would
going to
have
do. Yeah.
time to react in that nanosecond. So I just did this gentle, easy roll to his fingers. Jeff saw that and just went with his hand all the way up. And then we came back down to his face. In fact, that image is one of the posters of the movie.
Really? Oh, yeah. Actually, maybe I know that. I didn't. But hearing you say it's so great because to watch it, it seems like this was absolutely prescribed and decided on and rehearsed and whatever. And it is so amazing. But that shows how the two of you are so in concert together. And it's the best thing as an operator. It's the best thing when you and the focus puller, and by the way, if it's a dolly grip situation, the three of you are in concert together because everybody's reacting off of everybody else and everybody's telling the same story.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And it was, I thought, was an iconic moment.
Oh,
Again, we did it again. This time we knew it was going to happen. And
did you just do it twice?
I don't remember how many
Probably
times.
not
We didn't
a lot.
do it that
I bet
many
it wasn't
times.
a lot, yeah.
And each time, by the way, Joaquin's going to do it differently. There's a different interpretation. He's adding a different twist.
Yeah.
So you may not get the second chance at a moment you're hoping to get.
Yeah.
And that's okay. This is what it's all about. It's jazz.
Yeah.
We're playing jazz.
I say this all the time, actually. And the hope is that you end up making the good jazz that you want to listen to and not the bad jazz.
Well, hopefully. And that comes with the skill of the people who
Absolutely.
Comes with the skill of the musicians.
If I can find it, I'm going to put it on the webpage for this podcast so people can see what we're talking about. If they haven't seen it, hopefully you have. But to watch it again, that is such that scene. When I remember, first of all, I'll tell you this. I'm not a big superhero movie type person. It's just my personal thing. And everybody was saying, no, you really got to go see Joker. It's really amazing. And so I watched it and I remember I came out of it. And first of all, when that scene came up specifically, I just was breathless. It is so beautiful. Everything about it. I mean, on every level, what he's doing is unbelievable. And what you guys did was amazing. And I mean, just everything about it. But the movie was, first of all, fantastic. And more importantly, I don't use this word lightly, it's an important movie. It's actually saying something really important. And I thought, wow, you're making sort of, not in a bad way, mass market appeal movies that's actually saying something very important that people should be talking about. I was blown away by it.
The interesting thing is it's certainly not a superhero movie at all.
It isn't. I just assumed it was.
Right, because it's Joker.
Yeah.
It's a social commentary on the mental health crisis.
Completely.
That's what the story is.
It absolutely took me by surprise. I didn't expect that in any way, which was amazing.
That's to Todd's credit, Todd Phillips. He comes up with the most unique, creative ideas. You look at his IMDb. He was a comedy director for many, many years.
I know.
The Hangovers.
Oh, yeah.
Which, by the way, Hangover 1 especially, 3/4 of the movie was all ad lib.
Seriously.
It was the three guys taking it to the limit.
Having fun.
We had a script, of course. But the script was a mere suggestion. Mm-hmm. And, Zach Galifianakis, Oh my God. Every day he took it to a new level.
Are you laughing out loud on set every day, or fighting laughing loud?
Trying not to.
Yeah.
But there was one scene in Hangover 1, the first Hangover, where I think my gum launched out of my mouth across the set because of something Zach said. And it was like on take 7. It was so unexpected. It was the scene where we're in Heather Graham's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
She's a stripper in the movie who falls in love with Stu, Ed Helms, and ends up with his grandmother's Holocaust ring as an engagement ring. So when the guys were roofied, Ed Helms gave his grandmother's Holocaust ring to the stripper who he promised to marry when he was already in a relationship with someone else back at home. And this is all in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So the 3 guys are sitting on the couch trying to recreate what happened to them overnight. And Heather Graham comes out wearing the ring, and Ed Helms spits up his glass of water, realizing, my God, what have I done? And she leaves the room, and Ed turns to the other 2 guys, Bradley Cooper and Zach. She's wearing my grandmother's Holocaust ring. And on take 7, out of the blue, Zach said, I didn't know they gave out rings during the Holocaust.
Oh, jeez.
My gums spit out.
He's the most deadpan person in the world. Like, I remember when I first found out about him, someone was like, "You got to watch this show called Between Two Ferns."
Yeah,
and I started watching it. I was like, "What is this?" And he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant,
and he's the nicest man in the world.
Oh, that's great.
Just a sweetheart.
I love to hear that. All
of those guys are.
Yeah.
The Hangovers were a complete pleasure.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
And that was with Larry and Todd, and
sure,
we went from that to Joker.
Yeah.
We wrapped the final shooting day in the middle of the night, on whatever night of the week it was, late at night, and David Webb, our wonderful first AD, announces it's a picture wrap on Joker, and everybody's applauding, hugging. The celebration begins.
Yeah.
I'm standing next to Todd, and we gave each other a hug, and I turned to him and I said, "So what do you think? Is anybody going to watch this movie?" I was saying it lightly, but I truly meant it because we were a $60 million movie. That's all it was. And it was a movie that was not Batman.
Yeah.
Nobody knew. And Todd looked at me and said, "I don't fucking know. Probably not." He fully didn't know what was going to happen with the movie. And now we know.
Yeah.
1.5 billion box office. The movie is iconic.
Wow. Yeah. No, there's no question about it. So actually, before we move on to something else, Joaquin Phoenix. So when you're working with someone like him, I mean, he's known to be a method actor.
Yes.
And I have to imagine Joker is even like that to extreme because of what's going on there.
Absolutely.
So do you have any interaction with him?
Oh, yeah. 100%. Joaquin was very, very cooperative and very eager to accommodate our needs. We didn't ask him a lot, but when we needed to for a specific reason, we spoke up.
Yeah.
And he was very helpful.
That's
and
great.
very eager to help. But at the same time, we gave him his space. We gave him the respect. We let him do his process. And we just tried to be the fly on the wall, documenting it.
I have to assume with someone like that, and I don't know, but I have to assume that once you're a couple days in and he realizes these aren't guys who are just trying to figure out if I'm 12 feet away, but they actually are telling a story and they're as much of this process as I am. Yeah. And just listening to you and knowing Jeff and having talked to Jeff, I got to assume that he immediately recognizes like, oh, these are co-storytellers. And so
it was a mutual respect.
And I think in the other part of it is he's got to realize like they're not going to ask me for what they don't need, and what they need because
there's a reason.
If we don't grab this, then what's the point of doing?
Well,
so that's wonderful.
There was a big thing with Joaquin that he gave everything he had to those performances in both Jokers.
You can see it. Yeah. I mean, it's on screen.
The reason why he got the Oscar.
It's also, by the way, not only on screen in his performance, but like, especially I don't remember it was in Joker, but in the second one, when he takes his shirt off and you just see his bones, you realize this guy who is someone who's suffering for his art. I mean,
and that was not visual effects.
I figured it wasn't. Just knowing who he is, I figured it wasn't. It's like, it was chilling.
Well, when we did number 2, especially, I remember there were 2 situations where, again, the shots were pushing the limits
Yeah.
on all of our capabilities. And there was one particular shot I remember that was really not so difficult for operating, but incredibly difficult for me to get this all in one. And I did it. And Joaquin realized, when they called cut, Todd turned to me and said, "Greg, that was great. You got that right."
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, I think so." It was happening so fast.
Yeah.
I always kind of look for reinforcements. There wasn't any little thing in there that I didn't see, right?
Yeah.
Because there could be. And our DIT said, "No, that was great." So after it was confirmed that the shot was perfectly in focus, and I want to reiterate, it was a bear. It was, out of all the tough ones, this was extra tough. And we did it once. And Joaquin, when he realized we got it on camera, he came over running and just bear hugged me and just said, "Well done. Well done, Greg." And the reason was he didn't have to do it again.
Yeah.
We did it once.
That's
he did not have to do.
What a great moment for you. I mean, that must feel so unbelievable to
Yeah.
realize how appreciated you are and to be part of that and all that.
Well, there are so many great actors in our industry who do understand the process. Now, we have an equal number, if not more, who don't. And so, we just.
I'm going to
with
go
the
out on a
flow.
limb and say it's more. I'm just
Probably
going to
more.
say that.
Probably more.
Yeah. But do you remember what shot it was? I mean, I'm sure you do.
I do. I do.
Can you
It
share it?
was in the cantina. Or
This is in the second movie?
this is on the second one.
Okay.
It was in the prison chow hall.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call it, where they have their meals.
Where they...
And there was a riot. A riot breaks out.
Yeah, I remember because they're starting to sing a song or something.
They're singing "When the Saints Go
When the Saints Go
Marching."
Marching In. Yeah.
Now, I have to say the shot was not used in its entirety in the final cut.
Okay.
And I was a little disappointed.
Because I was going to say, I remember that, and I don't remember anything kind of...
Well,
yeah.
the riot breaks out. The shot we did, the riot breaks out. And Joaquin basically sits down to enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
We pushed in on a Technicrane tabletops across all the rows of tables. We had this 58 millimeter Nikkor that I adapted for cinematic use. It was a 1.3. We went from 30 feet to 8 inches, close up on his face.
Oh, my God.
Moving in rapidly.
I remember this push, yes.
Landing
Okay.
in a choker close up where you could see the depth of field dropping at his crow's feet. And, trying to, there's no focus marks that will work on something like that. If you try to line up,
That's
to
an off or
marks,
on situation. There's...
you're either in or you're either out.
Yeah.
And so I was doing it again, not paying attention to the numbers on the handset.
Yeah.
It didn't matter.
Yeah.
I was timing it off the move.
Yeah. Sure.
I don't know where 10 feet was. I don't know where 5 feet was. I don't know where 8 inches was.
Yep.
As long as the camera was moving, I was moving at the same rhythm, in terms of the focus knob and the marks,
Yeah.
the spread of the focus. And when the camera landed, I stopped.
Yeah.
You're either going to be on or you're going to be off.
It's commitment.
It's commitment.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. You're committed.
Yep.
In this case, I was on.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not trying to make myself sound like I'm superhero focus puller. There's plenty of times, Dave, I'll be off.
Yeah, but that one
know,
you were on, and that's
that
the
one
only,
I was
that's,
on.
that's all that matters, right?
And that was a good one to be on because the energy he was putting into that performance, it was just dropping if you kept doing take after take.
Sure. Yeah.
And,
yeah.
And
That's
honestly, I didn't want to do it again either.
That's the thing. That's the thing where they're like, "Oh, that's great. That's perfect. Let's just do it again." It's like, wait a minute.
There's another point I would like to make on shots like that, and the Jokers are great examples of this. There are times, well, you have to understand as a focus puller when the shot goes live and when it's not live. In other words, we're going to overlap as a buildup into where the shot becomes really important.
Yeah.
And then you may exit out of the shot where they're going to be in something else.
We're going to be on some other shot here. Yeah.
Now, as operators and focus pullers, we want to get every frame perfect. That's our DNA. But if you're doing a very challenging shot that's pushing the limits, I'm going to argue it's better to know when to know when the shot's going to go live.
Yep.
And if you have to sacrifice anything, be ready for all that.
Sure.
And get that.
Yeah.
If you don't get the lead up and you don't get the tail end, okay.
Yep.
If you got the important parts and the director confirms that, cinematographer confirms that, hey, you're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's all dead on. I mean, there's no question. And I also have to assume when you're doing that fast move that you were talking about, that's where, how many years you've been pulling focus?
45.
That's where 45 years comes in, right? It's everything you've been doing up to that point comes to that point where you can just be in that moment.
Well, you have to be relaxed. You can't worry about it. You have to breathe, and I go into a breathing. I don't even know I'm consciously doing this, but I've been told my breathing changes.
Like a yoga thing almost.
Almost
probably.
like a yoga thing, yeah, without meaning for
it makes
to be
perfect
that.
sense, though.
I go into a zone,
Yep.
and all distractions are gone in my peripheral vision.
Yep.
I don't hear anything else. I don't see anything else. My focus and my concentration is what's in front of me on that monitor in this case. And it's timing. And I'm feeling the shot. I'm feeling the story. I'm watching, obviously, to stay in sync with the move.
Yeah.
But it becomes innate. And my hand and my grip on the knob, I use 3 fingertips on the knob all the time.
Huh.
I don't grip it tight. I want to have a relaxed, light touch because that light grip keeps a light mind. A relaxed grip creates a relaxed mind. That's the best way to phrase it.
Sure.
And a relaxed mind allows you to outperform yourself.
That's fantastic. I can tell you that when I do big Steadicam shots that require a lot of remembering, moments and lines and this and that and the other, I know that I go. It's just like it's almost like basically a computer where it's like certain parts of the hard drive need to shut down in order to bring everything into this. And I'm sure breathing is part of that. And there are all these things that, like you said, you're not even aware that you're doing it. Other people have told you it. It's probably because on some level your body is like, I don't have time for this, so this is what's going to happen. So I can do this, and then I'll go back to normal. I think
that's right, and it's just innate.
It's innate. It's
you don't
exactly
even think
right.
about it. But I've watched younger focus pullers death grip that knob. Suddenly the focus range is beyond the rotation of their wrist, and that's where they get in trouble.
Yep.
They're so uptight inside. They're holding their breath. They're, that uptight grip is going to create an uptight mind. That can, the reverse. And you're not going to perform. So you sometimes have to relax yourself.
I did Ozark, the last season of Ozark, or 2 seasons that came out. And one of the reasons that I took the job was because I got to work with Laura Linney, who has always been I'm such a fan. And she was so wonderful. And we talked many times about things. And she told me a lot of it comes from her father, who used to tell her that if you're prepared, you can be relaxed. And if you're relaxed, you can be fierce. And she said, I try to be so unbelievably prepared that I can not even worry about it. And then when I'm not worrying about it, anything that gets thrown at me, I can roll with.
I love that.
And it reminds me of what you're telling me. It's like, because if you are relaxed, and obviously you have to have a skill level. I mean, that's without,
it has to
and you
become
need to know
muscle
the
memory.
technical and but at a certain point, if you can be relaxed, you can go, okay, I got this. Oh, that's coming. Oh, that's fine. I'll deal with that. And you know what? But if you're tense, you're not going to be able to do that.
You won't be able to
You're
do
not
it.
going to be able to pivot. You're not going to be able to.
And again, let's repeat. If you make a mistake, and quite often we all make those mistakes.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen, especially when you're doing those kind of shots.
Yep.
Forgive yourself. Let it go.
Excellent.
We get a take 2 most of the time.
Yep.
You know?
There's no question. So I want to ask you just a couple quick questions about working with operators, and then I want to ask you about your latest endeavor, because I don't want to forget that. When you think back on great operators that you've worked with, and you don't have to name who they are if you don't want to, are there aspects to what makes them great that you can identify?
Yes. I'm going to start by saying what I don't like.
That's actually almost better sometimes, yeah.
I don't like operators. I don't like any camera person, but operators in this case, who are not paying attention, who are more worried about what's at the craft service table than what's on set.
Yep.
I like leaders. I like decision makers. all right, this is the shot. We're going to do this, and we're going to move over here, and then I'm going to pan down to this. That's if you have the luxury of knowing what you're going to do.
Of course,
But I like teamwork, and I like communication. Those aspects make it a very enjoyable process.
yeah.
When you don't have that, when you have an operator who doesn't want to share any information, I know plenty of focus pullers who are like that, and it's equally not good. If you don't want to share the information, you shouldn't expect greatness from your teammate.
That's fantastic. It reminds me of our mutual friend John Lindley. One of the things that he taught me early on that I love is he'll, at the beginning of the day, he pulls the camera crew together, assuming we have the time for it and whatever. I just want to let you know what I think the day is looking like. We're going to start here. We're going to do this. We're going to be looking over there, and then we're going to look back this way. And of course, all this can change, but I'm just letting you know where we are now. And then everybody's like, oh, and the assistants are going, great. So if we have the carts over, and everybody's kind of like got a little bit of information. And the bigger thing that it made me realize early on was what he's doing is he's authorizing everybody to be part of the process. He's not just saying, you guys wait for orders. Like he's going, no, this is to the best of my knowledge what we're doing. And you do the best you can with it, and we'll keep on refining as we go. And I love that about them.
And I think, John, and you spoke about this during your John Lindley, the OP podcast, about Boleros and about these communication devices, because what has happened in the digital age of our business, we've all become very segregated. We're not all on set.
Yeah.
One of the things I teach is be on set. You don't have to be on set to pull focus.
Yeah.
But make an appearance, show interest, understand what's going on. Then you can go back to your monitor and
absolutely
do your thing.
And by the way, a great piece of advice for B camera operators: you're not doing a shot, hang out a little farther back so you're not in anybody's way, but watch the monitor or watch the A camera operator. Just be aware of what's going on. Also, so that you're ready to go in the second that it comes, but that you're learning.
A lot of times with the DPs I work with, they allow me to do all the hiring and choosing, even the operators, additional operators.
Yeah.
I don't always have that pleasure.
Yeah.
But when I do, the qualities I look at with like a C or D camera operator, the day play operators.
Yeah.
I want to get people who are going to be looking for shots, looking for opportunities, not standing back waiting to be told. And going back to, we were going to say something about being segregated with these Boleros or whatever communication device.
Whatever headsets, yeah.
It keeps a lot of people away, I feel, and you turn off your brain and you wait to be told what to do as opposed to becoming proactive.
Yeah.
On our camera team, I won't put up with reactiveness. You have to be proactive.
You
I don't
want
care
everybody to step ahead.
what your job is on the team.
Yeah.
You could be the loader. You could be the utility. You could be the B camera first, B camera operator. Doesn't matter. If you're going to be on my camera department, you're going to be proactive.
I could not agree with that more. And I think one of the things, you alluded to this, and I see it with younger B camera operators who are on these headsets, is they're waiting to be told to fix something or to do something. And actually, I have a good friend of mine who's a DP who calls me up, and the things that he's doing, he's tending not to work with, unfortunately, B camera operators who are maybe as seasoned. And he said, it drives me nuts because like they're not fixing the things that I used to just do without thinking. And I said, it's because they're on headsets and they're going, well, someone's going to mention it. And I don't think even they may be recognizing that they're doing that. I think that's just becoming the way that things are.
I think you're right. It's also a lack of confidence.
Yeah.
They're afraid to get in there and do something.
But the thing is, we all had that lack of confidence at one point too.
That's right.
I probably still do, but
That's right.
but because we weren't on headsets, we were looking at things going, oh, but I don't know. I guess I got to fix that because that's gonna screw me. As opposed to, going, well, nobody's told me to fix it, so it must be okay because they're looking at the monitors too. You had to get out there and be proactive.
If you're an additional camera operator on a TV show or movie, I would say look for the opportunities, unless they tell you not to. Look for opportunities, offer them up. They may not be accepted, but say, hey, I can put a camera here and get a close-up of so-and-so if you're lit for it.
Yes. That's the key.
Then as far as I'm concerned, as the A camera first, if you're doing that, just let me know if you're taking a camera over there because I know where all my assets are, people and things.
Yeah.
And I don't want to suddenly be thinking I'm going to move my D camera, leapfrog ahead over here. Then I see them setting a shot off in the distance. Just communicate.
Well, you basically don't want surprises.
Right.
that's the key.
It's just all about communication.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those A camera firsts that you will know everything I know.
Mm-hmm.
You're no good to me if you're in the dark. I'm no good to you if you're in the dark.
Yep.
So you're going to know everything as I know it. And again, my job is to listen to what you need to make you great.
Now, if I'm someone who came up quickly, I'm 25. I mean, I became an A camera operator when I was 25, and I probably shouldn't have been, but luckily I pulled it off. But nowadays, I'm 25. I'm 26. I don't have years of experience behind me. I get pulled onto a show, and I'm the A camera operator, and I show up, and you are my focus puller that I'm working with. How do I handle that, knowing that you've got 45 years of experience? You are so much better than I am.
Well, I'm not better at operating necessarily.
No, but you know more about the whole process. I mean, do I basically say, look, I'm just going to be straight with you. I'm still learning. I've got some, but I need all the help you can get. And the other question is, am I concerned about saying to you, hey, we need the camera here and we need the lens here and this and that, because
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, you need to be the role. You're a role model. You're a leader.
Yeah.
We, the camera department, are the centerpiece of the process. Mr. Jonathan Alcott, BSc, Stanley Kubrick's cinematographer, taught me that when I had the pleasure of assisting him when I was 20 years old.
Okay.
And I was pretty green.
So by the way, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being the centerpiece of the process, we're in a leadership role. And as a young A camera operator, you're not excluded from that. You have to be in your leadership role. If you don't understand something, admit it. If you need some sage advice privately, come to me. I'm not going to embarrass you. I'm your teammate.
Yeah.
Camera work is a team sport. We need each other. We can't succeed on our own. We can only succeed together. But Jonathan Alcott taught me something even more so that I still believe to this day, even though times have changed. I was 20 years old. I had long hair. I wore T-shirts.
You had long hair?
I had long hair down to my shoulders.
Okay.
Wore T-shirts, shorts, Vans, I was a skateboard kid, all that. Southern California beach bum.
Yep.
And an aspiring first AC who somehow, through great fortune, landed this 2-week job with Jonathan.
And back then, pre-IMDb, were you aware of who he was? Okay.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I knew exactly who I was, and I knew what the opportunity for me was.
Sure.
And I wanted to do everything perfectly in my green novice ways. And so not only was I the first AC, I was also the second AC and loader. It was an army of one.
Okay.
So we were shooting on a Friday. It was a Friday. I'm building a camera. I'm getting a shot ready. I'm working very hard. I'm on my knees. I'm probably dirty. And Jonathan is sitting in his chair, watching me intently. I was very, very aware of this, and he was making me very nervous. But I'm trying to ignore it and just keep going.
Yep.
Suddenly I hear, Gregory, come over here, please.
Oh, boy.
Oh, God.
Oh, jeez.
I jumped up, ran over, said, yes, sir. He is looking me up and down with the most critical look. And he says to me, what department are you in? Oh. I looked at him completely confused. Then I got incredibly unconfident. And I think I asked it as a question. The camera department?
I hope.
I hope. And he said, yes, you are in the camera department. You are supposed to be among the educated ones and the centerpiece of the process. May I suggest a haircut and a collared shirt?
Wow.
If you insist on looking like that, and he motioned towards me, he said, join the grips. Now off with you, boy.
Wow.
Now, we are not bad-mouthing the grips. We can't function without them. They have a job to do, and they have to dress.
I was going to say, and it wouldn't work well if they were all wearing collared shirts, because there's a lot of, yeah.
But when I started and when you started, there was an unwritten code of conduct in the camera department.
Yep.
There was even grooming expectations. Now, I don't expect those days to come back.
No.
They won't. But the message is still loud and clear. You are representing the camera
You're
department.
representing the camera.
We're
And there's a sense of pride in that. And it means
Absolutely.
something. I
We're
think
a
that's
legacy
what,
department.
Yeah.
We date back to the 19th century.
Yep. That's great. What a great story.
And in 30 seconds, he changed my life. Went home that day, had the weekend, came back Monday morning, collared shirt, long pants, haircut. And you can, your viewers, listeners right now can't see me, but they can see my
Still the
picture
same
on
thing.
IMDb. It's never changed.
That's great.
He changed my life and taught me what it meant to be in the camera department.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that.
I'll never forget him.
Well, you know what? Since you spoke about teaching, tell me about your latest endeavor.
Well, it's been in the making for several years. I was requested by numerous parties and leadership in our industry to do this.
Yep.
So now I've done it. It's an educational program. Thank you for asking, Dave.
No, I think this is fantastic.
It's an educational program called Focus on Camera. We just launched, we're brand new, and we're opening with Focus on Assistant Camera.
And it's just launched in the sense that you actually haven't done this yet, right?
December 6th, we went live in business.
Yep. Okay.
We are opening with teaching focus pulling. It's a 2-day program in person. So we are traveling to different cities, internationally as well as domestic.
Wow.
And teaching. Day 1 is all about focus pulling. Day 2 is the business of the camera department.
Great.
That means leadership and management, business negotiation, how to not make your career just a hobby,
Yeah. Yeah.
how to actually make a living, how to manage your freelance
This is amazing.
lifestyle. So the focus pulling on day 1, we're not teaching starting, which direction do you turn the knob to go close and far,
Yeah.
even though this will benefit new people coming in.
Sure.
We are teaching a higher level version of focus pulling, the state of mind, the successful mindset, everything we spoke about today, how to stay relaxed, relax grip, relax mind. We're going to talk about philosophies and techniques. It's all about story.
This is so great.
You're going to be relaxed. You're not going to be reliant on marks. You're not going to worry about depth of field.
Yep.
We're going to teach that. Then you're going to be put to the test with exercises with actual gear. We talk about a whole series of different things. You're going to learn to pull focus the old-fashioned way without monitors, without light rangers.
Yep.
You're going to do it like we did it back in the day. Because when that day happens that you don't have the technology or the technology fails, you're going to have the confidence to go forward and do it.
That's so great. And so you're doing the first one in Atlanta here? That's
First
right?
one is Atlanta at Keslow Camera on February 8th and 9th.
Great.
We'll be in Los Angeles at Otto Nemens, February 28th, March 1st.
Oh, right after that.
Right
Okay,
after.
Right.
Then I can't remember the exact dates. We're in Vancouver, Toronto, New York, and London. We just added Chicago.
Fantastic.
And then we'll be adding courses after that.
Yeah.
So
And the response has been good?
response has been very good.
That's great.
There is a charge for it, so you can go to focusoncamera.com. All the details are there. You could pay for enrollment. It's going to be great.
That's
The
fantastic.
thing that I refuse to call it a workshop. We're not a workshop. We're not a seminar. Workshops teach a few things about a craft, tips and tricks.
Yep.
This isn't about tips and tricks. We are getting much deeper into it than that. We don't expect to create the super focus puller in one day. That's not going to happen.
No.
But we are going to give you the foundation of how to think
That's
for the successful mindset and to be relaxed and confident in your decision making with focus pulling as you go forth. That's day 1. Day 2, we give you the path forward of how to apply all that new knowledge towards your career.
That's fantastic. I can't wait to hear how this goes. It's going to be amazing. It's
going to be great.
Anybody who takes this, you're lucky to have this opportunity. I mean, just listening to this podcast, I think people are going to get the idea of what they're in for, but it's even more than that.
And you get me as your instructor.
Yeah.
And so we're traveling to you.
That's great.
Full schedule.
And how many people in each class?
I'm keeping it small intentionally, 10 to 12, because I want to give you the proper amount.
You're going to get
attention.
hands-on, one-on-one, but you're going to get FaceTime. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you're going to get personalized attention.
That's amazing. Well, I can't wait to see how this goes, and
Thank you.
It's just, and I'll obviously link to it on the website and whatnot. So that's fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I've learned a lot actually, and it makes me think about things. It's just so great and wonderful to sit down with you. I'm going to leave you with the question that I leave everybody with, and you can take us out with it. Advice for someone getting into the industry today on how to succeed, or what you wish you knew back in the day that you know now.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Dave, for having me on this. It's a true honor to be a part of it. I loved every minute of this. We can go on for hours.
Oh yeah, that's the problem.
That's the problem. My advice for people entering this industry is pretty simple. You're not going to know your craft inside and out. That takes years of practice, refinement, and experience to become really proficient at anything in this industry, anything in life, really. But what you do need to have is character and credibility. With good character, you will have good credibility, and that creates trust among your department, among your employers, and that'll get you far. I like to teach something that I came up with many, many years ago teaching at the university. Not teaching, I lecture as a guest lecturer at major film schools around the country. I like to say, represent yourself as you wish to be perceived. Represent yourself as you wish to be perceived. There is no right or wrong answer to that. Now, the best example of this, you have two guys applying for a job. One guy is very well groomed, short hair, collared shirt, everything, well dressed, well presented. The other guy is scruffy beard, piercings, tattoos, wearing a ski cap in July. Two completely opposite looks. I always ask, who is going to get the job? Well, most of the time they say, well, probably the well-groomed guy. Then I'll ask, what if he's applying to a tattoo studio or a skateboard shop? Who's going to get the job? Represent yourself as you wish to be perceived.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.